Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the WWL Louisiana News at 4. I'm Devin Bartolotta. Here are today's top headlines. Bertha is now the second named storm of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season, and we are watching as it continues to make its way westward across the Gulf. Everyone from Florida to Texas is watching for the impacts that might come. What you're looking at here is live from Pensacola, Florida on the top where it just started to rain, and Grand Isle is on the bottom. Still looks pretty nice out there in Grand Isle. The National Hurricane Center just released its 4 p.m. update, so let's get right over to Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin. Chris, what's the update? What have we learned?
Well, thankfully, it's not strengthening. Waiting for it to start weakening. That hasn't happened yet, but it looks like maybe it has peaked at its strength. Pressure at 995, which is what it was at the last advisory. The forward speed, though, has picked up slightly, 6 miles an hour. We'd like to see that increase a little bit more. Winds remain at 60 miles an hour. However, the Hurricane Center assumes that later tonight and certainly into tomorrow, it will begin weakening due to the interaction of dry air and increasing wind shear. And it's that dry air and wind shear that is keeping almost the entirety of the northern side of the storm almost completely rain-free. Again, as we've said, doesn't mean we're not going to see any rain. And in fact, we've had some decent thunderstorms just off to our west, somewhat associated with the broad overall spin of Bertha. But that has been it. The strongest storms remain south of the center, and that's where they will stay. In fact, we'll likely start getting pushed even farther south going into tomorrow. Now, by tonight, the 1 a.m. should be at about 50 miles an hour. So the anticipation is that hopefully by the 7 o'clock advisory, 10 o'clock advisory, we will see some gradual weakening. Approaching the Louisiana coast and also landfall time a little bit earlier tomorrow afternoon, somewhere maybe southern Plaquemines, or central Plaquemines Parish or southern St. Bernard, as it kind of moves right along the Louisiana coastline, continuing toward Texas, where could make landfall there as a weak tropical storm and then quickly weaken as it continues pushing inland. As I've said, though, we have had some showers around here, though, somewhat loosely associated with the broad spin of Bertha. Really, the immediate thunderstorms associated with the storm are all in the Gulf waters, which is where they will stay. A lot of the activity is starting to wind down, but did have some decent little downpours that developed earlier this afternoon. Coming up, we'll talk about our rain chances, winds increasing tomorrow, storm surge, and more importantly, the heat as we deal with our landfalling storm. More on that coming up.
All right, lots to talk about. Thank you so much, Chris. Meanwhile, parishes across the area, especially those closer to the coast or outside levees, are taking extra precautions. Some floodgates are set to close, while sandbags are also available. You can find a list of all those locations on our website, WWLTV.com. And we are monitoring preparations all across the area. Let's check in now with Paul Murphy in Terrebonne Parish. Paul, what have leaders been doing today to make sure residents there stay safe?
Well, it's about watching, waiting, and preparing, and that's certainly the case down here in Houma. We are along the banks of the Petite Caillou. It's one of the many waterways that run through Terrebonne Parish. And just down the road from here in Chauvin, a construction crew is working to shore up a section of levee before Bertha hits. The crew spent the day loading large sandbags called super sacks onto marsh buggies to repair the Ward 7 levee, damaged during Hurricane Francine about a year ago. Parish President Jason Bergeron says there aren't any holes in the levee, just areas where dirt washed away during that storm. Contractors were expected to install 200 super sacks by the end of the day. Some residents want to know why the parish waited until another storm was on its way to make the repairs. Bergeron says the parish only just got FEMA approval to do the work.
This is a great example of why we need the money sooner, because, that was over a year and a half ago. And so the plan always was to get emergency repair, emergency temporary repair, right? Everything we're doing, we're gonna have to remove and go back with regular dirt. But at the end of the day, that's what FEMA tells us we have to do. And if we don't follow that process, we do not get reimbursed.
And Bergeron says that Terrebonne should begin feeling some minor tropical storm winds by about 10 Wednesday night, and he is also expecting 2 to 4 feet high tides and about 2 to 4 inches of rain. We're live at home of Paul Murphy, WWL, Louisiana.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for the update down there. We appreciate it. And remember, you can always find the latest updates on the weather on our website, social media, and on our free app for your phone or TV. And more top stories today. In less than 24 hours, we should learn about preliminary findings from an independent autopsy on Nolan Wells. Yesterday, mourners gathered to remember the Mississippi 18-year-old. Wells was last seen on the 4th of July when he took a boat trip with friends to an island off the Gulf Coast. His body was found 2 days later. There is a reward for anyone with information that leads to an arrest or a conviction in this case, although it's still unclear if there was any criminal wrongdoing. Today, former Slidell Interim Police Chief Daniel Seuzeneau announced that he will run for St. Tammany Parish Sheriff. He resigned from the department this morning to focus on his campaign. This comes after the resignation of former Sheriff Randy Smith, who stepped down earlier this year after pleading guilty to misdemeanor battery after a fight at a Madisonville steakhouse. Seuzeneau, who has spent more than 2 decades with the Slidell Police Department, said leaving the agency was a difficult decision, but one he believes is the right move.